Please welcome Nigel Martyn and Eddie Gray. Thanks to our musical director, absolutely seamless there at the bar this evening. So let's introduce you to our two star guests, starting with the man on the far left. Good that we're here at a renowned cricket club, of course, because a man who is no stranger to big transfer deals has just advised me tonight he's leaving Knaresborough CC to go and play for Scarcroft in another huge money deal. And to be fair, plenty of us in this room obviously involved with cricket. You know, from about 35 onwards it gets to be a little bit tricky on the old aches and pains front. This guy will be 60 in August and he's still going to be playing first team cricket this year at Scarcroft in the York Senior League. So that's a great testament to his fitness. He tells me he's just started his latest fitness program on New Year's Day. So he's only just getting going. And look at the shape of him now, the size of him now. Cornishman, of course, he signed famously for Leeds back in 1996 from Crystal Palace in a deal worth £2.25 million. It was the second time he'd gone for £1 million or more, and a record fee for a goalkeeper. And his stay of around 7 years at Elland Road certainly left a big impression. He was part of that team that came again out of the doldrums and were figuring well in Europe for a little while. 23 England caps, and in 2006, probably his greatest accolade, because he became voted into Leeds United's greatest team of all time as their greatest goalkeeper of all time in a fans' poll, and he was the only player not from the Revie era to make it into that side. Please welcome Nigel Martyn. And then the other fellow, well, he's out there on the screen at the moment, dazzling teams like he used to do with his skills down the left-hand side in particular. Just look at him now as he goes past another Southampton defender in that 7-0 thrashing back in 1972. His boyhood dream was to have played for Glasgow Celtic. Not sure how they're doing tonight, Eddie, are you? He signed as a teenager, of course, for Leeds under the tutelage of Don Revie, and was, of course, a massive part of the success of the 60s and 70s. Played over 600 times, or nearly 600 times for Leeds, and 12 times for Scotland. And I think any of us around at the time were pretty sure that he would have done a lot more on both counts had he not been riddled with an injury to his thigh, which he might talk to us about a little bit later on. Remember the great goals he scored against Burnley back in 1970? They weren't the only ones, but they were the ones that we so often recall. And in 2000 he was named the third greatest player of all time for Leeds United, behind his old skipper Billy Bremner and John Charles. Please welcome a genuine bona fide football legend, Eddie Gray. We could have some feedback problems there by the sound of it, but we'll try our best to overcome those. Eddie, first of all, how are we? Looking very dapper this evening.
Yeah, you know, it's standards, you know, you keep up, you know, I'm looking at Nigel, you know, calling a guy and I don't. It's just how Don Revie brought us up, you know.
You'll have enjoyed that late winner against Fulham last week.
Yeah, great.
You were there,
I mean, yeah, I go to every game. I mean, I've been very fortunate over the years. I mean, I joined the club when I was 15. But just a little story about when I first joined the club, when I was 15, a scout came up to my mum and dad's house in Glasgow. His name was John Barr. I mean, John was a great scout for Leeds United. He got a lot of top players, you know. My brother came later, and Joe Jordan, Gordon McQueen, all the Scottish boys came through John Barr. But when he first come up to the house, and he told me he was a scout for Leeds United, my first reaction was, who? Because I'd never heard of them. I'd never heard of Leeds United in my life. They'd never won anything. You know, like, you back to 1963, never won a trophy, never been in a major final. But I decided to go down for the weekend, only because I thought it's a weekend away from Glasgow, and I lived in a council estate which was quite rough. I thought, well, it'd be quite nice to go somewhere else. And when I went to Leeds, I'd been to the Arsenal, I'd been to the Manchester clubs, but I was going to Celtic. I'm a Celtic supporter, still a Celtic supporter, you know. That never leaves you, you know. But I just decided to go down for a weekend, and I got the train. My mum and dad put me on a train in Glasgow Central and golf at Leeds, and the golf at Leeds, I seen this guy and I thought, I know that guy, and it was the manager himself. And that had never happened to any other club. I mean, it was somebody representative for the club would meet you. But Don met me, took me to the hotel, told me to pick me up the next morning. I don't know if many people in here will remember the winter of 1962-63. It was horrendous. There was snow all over the place forever, you know. So I was sitting with all the young boys in the dressing room, you know, the young trialists all over the country, and Don come in and he says to me, come here, you're training with me today. I was only 14 at the time. They took me training with the first team. So it's a lot of snow and ice, you know. You've got to remember this, first and foremost. So I picked the ball up, and a big lanky centre half come into me. I think his name was Charlton. And you know, I done the most stupidest thing. I nutmegged him. You know what a nutmeg is? I nutmegged him. So as I ran round the other side of him, he booted me up in the air. And I'm lying in the snow. And he looked down at me and says, never do that to me again. That's true. Then he turned to Don and says, you've got to sign this boy, Don. He's going to be a good player. That's true. It was my first experience at Leeds. I thought, well, I've got to go to this club.
If you just bring Nigel in for the first time, Eddie, I mean, what was your first experience? What was it? Tell us about that call that you got, or whatever it was, to bring you to Leeds.
Coming to Leeds, I was driving up the motorway to sign for Everton, and we were halfway up the M6, and the phone call came through that Leeds had matched the bid, and my agent said, well, it's in our interest to go and speak to both teams. So we arrive at Park Foods in Everton, which is it was the chairman's business that he had. Chairman wasn't there, manager wasn't there, but it was left to a director to just get me to sign on the dotted line. So when we arrived, first thing we said is, Leeds have matched the bid, we're going to go and talk to them as well. He was quite surprised, went out the room, kept going in and out the room to make calls and speaking to Joe Royal and things like that. And then he said, well, if you're going to go to Leeds, you better pick up signs for the M62, go through the Mersey Tunnel, pick up signs for M62 and go over to Leeds. So we literally just jumped back in the car, drove over here, and then met Bill Fotherby and Howard at the Majestic Hotel in Harrogate, and there was just no way they were going to let me go back to Everton to sign. You know, my wife actually had somebody, a part of her family that were living in Liverpool at the time, so we were probably favouring to go and sign for Everton, but you know, they made sure that we didn't go back, and we signed.
When you think about the great goalkeepers that have played the game on these isles per se, you know, to be the first guy to be a £1 million signing and then £2.25 million signing for Leeds, that must have brought some serious pressure. You know, it's no good you kind of go out and lose 6 blob, is it, on your first match after that?
No, it was simple for me. It wasn't my valuation. That's the first and foremost. That's always what I said. I think when I signed for Crystal Palace for that £1 million, and it was the first ever £1 million goalkeeper, they were asking me all that, and I was like, personally, I don't think any player was worth £1 million at the time. So you know, it's between two clubs have made a decision. The only thing I did was try my best every time I went out and played. That's the only pressure I put on myself.
What do we think these two would be worth in current terms?
I've got to say something just here, just interrupt a little bit.
You interrupt.
He's about the only player for the eras that I never played in that could get into your team. He would have a great chance of getting into your team. You know, the others.
Yeah,
you know, it's a bit difficult, you know, because, you know, Billy, our captain, Billy was a great player, but Billy was a character. And I was at a do with Billy one night, and somebody says to Billy, Billy, if your team played against Howard Wilkinson's great team, you know, Gordon and Gary Mack, how do you think the game would go? And Billy thought for a minute, and he thought, I think we'll beat them 1-0. So the guy says to Billy, why only one, Billy? Why not 3 or 4? And Billy looked at him and says, you've got to remember, we're all in our 50s now. Billy was probably right.
And talking of signings, I mean, Eddie, going back to when you talked us through how you got there in the first place, but there was kind of, we've already mentioned the team, Everton, you know, there was one key signing that got the team going on the park, in your opinion. I know this because you've told me before.
Well, it's not only my opinion, it's the opinion of every player I played with, and every player that walked through the gates at Elland Road should look back and think the best signing Leeds United ever made was Bobby Collins. He was just unbelievable. But Bobby was 5'3", great footballer, you know, great footballer. He came to our club when everybody thought he was finished. You know, in Football of the Year the next year at our club. Football of the Year. And he was just, Bobby was a one-off. He was a bit mad though, you know, Bobby was like, you wouldn't want to play against Bobby. He was 5'3", and Bobby would kill you to win a game. No, Bobby would like, actually, he was frightening. You know, when I was like 15, Don used to split us into 14s, and with captains, you know. And when I first come down, I was in Bobby's team. So, and we used to play for points through pre-season, and the winning captain would get a little prize at the end of it, and I was in Bobby's team. And the most points you could get to win the cross country at Roundy Park in Leeds. So Bobby, I was only 15, but Bobby realised I could run. He says, right, he come up to me, 5'3", he looked up to me, I want 20 points off you today, so you're getting the points, Bobby, don't worry. So I'm running around Roundy Park, I'm clearing everybody for an old Scottish pro called Jim Storey. Who remembers Jim Storey? Yeah, Jim was a great goal scorer. So I'm running, Storey and I had left all the players behind. We're running down Soldiers Field, going down towards the clock at Oakwood, and I can hear Storey's knackered, and I think, this is a doddle. I'm just ready to go, and Storey says to me, an old Scottish pro, Eddie, we've left them all behind. We're running together. We get 20 points each for our teams. You got to remember, I'm 15. So he says, right, let's get you chest to chest. 2 yards to the line and sprints away from me. And this is true. So Bobby comes in, my captain, I'm in Bobby's team. He sees Don killing himself laughing. He sees Storey killing himself laughing. He asked me what happened, and I told him, and he chinned me. Proper chin me. He did. Never let that happen to you again. Bobby, I'll never happen to him again. But that was how the game was then. And Bobby he's the most important player that's ever walked through the gates of Elland Road. Ever. I mean, people don't realise the influence they had on the club, the manager. When I was 15, and you know, you're a young guy in the ground staff, and at half time you used to try and sneak into the corner of the dressing room just to hear the half time team talk. Well, I would get in the half time team talk, and Don would be standing, fixing his tie, and Bobby Collins would be getting into all the players. Brendan, you're useless. You wouldn't have got a game at Celtic Park when I played through the whole team. And they'd all be going, yes, Bobby, yes, Bobby. And that's how important Bobby was to the club. Most important player ever walked through the gates, because he brought a winning mentality. And it's not just about having talent in football, it's having that, and you know that, having that winning mentality. You can have a lot of great players, but if they don't unify and play as a unit, and that was Bobby's great asset. So that's why I say he is the most important player that's ever walked through the gates. I'm not saying he was the best player, but he was a hell of a player, by the way. He was Footballer of the Year when he came to Leeds in England. But he was just an amazing guy, and the club, the Leeds United, as we sit here and know them now, wouldn't have been the same club if Don Revie wouldn't have brought Bobby for Everton to here. Bobby's the most important player ever.
Nigel, we talked about your signing. It must have been pretty weird that you were signed by Howard Wilkinson, of course, last title winner for us as a manager, and within 4 games at the start of the season, your first season, he's got the bullet and George Graham's in. How did you find that?
It was a strange time. You know, you just come to a club and the manager that buys you gets the sack. I remember Mark Bean, he was the other goalkeeper. He came up to me the next day and said, "Well, it's a new manager now. Gloves are off. You know, the #1 jersey's up for grabs again now." He said, "I'm going to really try and get it off you." He was very upfront with it. And I was like, "Well, yeah, fine, carry on. You know, whatever." But I think George coming was actually a very good thing for me. I mean, it probably wasn't the most attractive style of football that first season that we played, but I think we got something like 22 or 23 clean sheets that season, and that actually got me back into the England squad, because I hadn't been in it for a couple of years, because I was just making 1 or 2 saves a game, and we were keeping a clean sheet, so I had so little to do. And obviously, you know, down in London when they're going, "Oh, Leeds another clean sheet," it gets me back into the England fold. So it was a really good signing. You know, George, love him or hate him, I think, you know, for the spell that we had under him, he put the building blocks in there, which I think David benefited from when he took over. You know, defensively, George had got us very sound. He was just starting to take the shackles off a little bit and start to become a little bit more expansive, but then you know, he decided he wanted to go and play or be in London and play for, you know, or manage Tottenham, which was disappointing for us. But you know, David stepped straight into the job, and David integrated the younger lads quicker than I think George would have. I think George had got Harry and Woody had come to a couple of games and played a couple of games under him, but I think David could see the talent that was there and was not frightened to bring them into the team probably a lot quicker than George would have.
And did you, in those first season or so, could you see that rise that you went on as a side over that 4-5 year period?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we just got better year on year. You know, one very good sounding board, if you like, for that was, you know, 1 year in the UEFA Cup, we lose to Roma, home and away, we lose over 1-0. I think we lost over there and drew 0-0 at home. And the following season we drew them again in the same competition, and we drew 0-0 over there and beat them 1-0 at our place. And it just showed how far we'd come as a team, and we were still going forward because we got better and better from them. And it was just a great time to play at the club, really. Just, you know, some of the players we had, the team spirit we had, and the way we just wanted to go and win every game.
And some of those European nights, I mean, pick out your favourite memories from those, from where you're standing between the posts.
I can remember we used to meet at a hotel before the European games in the centre of Leeds, and I have no idea where it is to this day now. And we used to have a meeting, and David would get the flip chart, he'd name the team, and he'd go through some of their players and what to expect, and go through our set pieces and things like that. And as we were walking out, it was me and David were the last two to actually exit the room, and we were playing AC Milan, And as we're going out, I just sort of tapped him on the shoulder and pointed, and out through one of the windows there was it was a takeaway place called the Italian Job, and I was like, this is us for tonight. And obviously that game was incredible. It was, I think it's the loudest noise I've ever been involved in on a football pitch when Lee's goal goes in. Dida throws it in for us, which was very nice of him, and we beat one of the European greats 1-0, with Michael Dewberry and Danny Mills at centre half. I think it was. It was quite incredible. They had Beerhoff and Shevchenko, and I think it was Mills and Dewberry kept them out. It was very pleasing, great nights. The noise that you guys used to make on those nights they just helped so much, because there were times when these great teams would put us under pressure, and you would be screaming and shouting and really forcing us that extra bit to put a tackle in, a last ditch tackle, or make a save, or somebody get a goal, and it was just an incredible time.
Eddie, back with you this week. I listened to a really good documentary. If you've not heard it already, then I recommend you go listen to it. 56 minutes of one of my Radio Leeds colleagues, Adam Pope, doing the Revie story from the other day. The Everton non-signing, and obviously you know all about it, Eddie, but for those who haven't seen that and have been on a different planet for the last few days, Popey, his stepdad on the Everton board, for a long time. His stepdad died some time ago. His mum died last year, and when he was clearing out the house, he finds in a filing drawer a contract for Don to go and sign for Everton in 1973, which obviously remained unsigned. There was a lot of talk about it from what the documentary said at the time. I was just a little bit too young to remember those sorts of things, Eddie, but how close did you know a lot of detail about that at the time? Was there any influence from the players to try and persuade him to stay if you thought he was going?
Never knew a lot about it, but I knew Don was you know what a fox is? Don was very clever. Don't use that to get a big rise at Leeds. That's all. No intention of going there. No intention. I know a great friend of his. Never said he's just taking the Michael, just get a few quid after off the board. Don was a great manager, but Don was very astute and clever in financial matters, and his wife Elsie, she was very clever. She was a teacher, she was very clever. So it must have been a nightmare for the board at the time when Don's contract was up, because they knew that they'd come in and going, whoa, if you don't give me some money, and I'll be off. I think that what people forget about Don, as well as the great football brain, is somebody behind him, Elsie, his wife, who was very clever financially. I remember Mr. Cousins, who was chairman at the time, had a beautiful house in All Woodley called Three Chimneys, and Don threatened the club he was leaving, so Mr. Cousins sold Three Chimneys to Don for £1. Official. And then Don threatened the club again a couple of years later. So then the club gave him a bit of land at Weirdley that Lord Harwood owned. Don was clever. Don was very clever. A great football manager, a great football brain. As you know, football in a year, but Don looked after himself, from a point of view, financial stability, and I don't blame him for that, because you look at a couple of the older managers that done well for the great clubs over the years, and they ended up with nothing. I think the thing about managers at that time, you take Don Revie, Jockstein, Shankly, There was one manager that lorded over the lot of them, and that was Matt Busby. Matt Busby was the doyen of managers, because Matt Busby ran the club. and what he said went at Man United. So when Don got the job, when Shankly got the job, when Jock Stein got the job at Celtic, they all went to see one man to ask him how to deal with directors, and that was Matt Busby. Because nobody knew more about the game than Busby, and how to deal with directors, and because the hard thing for a manager, if you're a young manager getting in, and you know yourself, you've known some of the directors over the years, it's difficult for them if they're not strong and powerful. So Don became very, very strong through meeting Matt Busby, and he was the man that I think all the managers in that era, and that's when the era before Matt Busby, you know, like we're sitting here. Can you tell me another manager? Matt Busby was the man that sort of was Jock Stein, Matt Busby, Bill Shankly, Don Revie. He was the man that made managers powerful at football clubs, and rightly so, because they're the guys that stand in the touchline every game. And if things aren't going well, saying to the crowd can have a go at. They don't have a go at the guys in the stand. They can have a go at the manager if he's not buying the right players. So I mean that's why Don was such a clever manager, because he bought into that experience, he used it himself, and I don't think there would ever been a better manager, somebody that knew the game and knew how to deal with directors than Don. Because some people think, you know, if you're a manager of a football club, it's just like get in and you pick your teeth. You've got to deal with the people upstairs, because they want the club, you know, to get everything as cheap as they can. You know, they want to be spending money, the owners.
So I mean, you've experienced obviously both playing and managing at the club. Management by comparison to playing, different times by the time you were in charge of the team. How did that go?
Well, I enjoyed it. I mean, I realised that when I took over as manager, we hadn't a lot of money. But it's still the same game. You know, you do it and you train the players to the best of your ability or what you think you can do. It might not work, but that never influenced how I thought about how the game should be played. And I mean, it's like when you talk about players, you know, like, and everybody's got their own thoughts about players. Just funny enough, I think Nigel's the only player in his era that could have got into our teams. You know, and it's truthful that a lot of people might disagree. I think there might have been one or two others, maybe Gordon, Strachan. McAllister was a great player. I've got to say, he was a great player.
All Scottish.
They're all Scottish, these, aren't they?
What else do you expect? Okay. Well, Billy Bremner, Peter Longmire. Where did it all come from?
Joe Jordan, Gordon
Joe Jordan,
David Harvey,
Johnny Giles. No. Yeah, but he's nearly Scottish. He comes from
David Hopkins.
He wants to leave early, I think.
No, it's funny, you know, when I first came to the club when I was 15, and Don's wife, you know, Elsie, she was very influential, you know, very, very influential to Don, because she was a family called Duncan. She was a Duncan, and all the Duncans, you know, about 5, the Duncans all played for Leicester. No, they all played for Leicester. That's where Don met Elsie. You know, they were all basically into football. So Mrs. Revie, you know, I'll call her Mrs. Revie, but her name was Elsie. She knew as much about the game as Don, you know. Seriously. She knew the game because all her brothers played. They grew up, they managed it at Leicester. So that's where Don first met Elsie.
Is that why you ended up playing on the left wing instead of in midfield, like you always said you should have done?
No, Elsie would have said to Don, we've got a couple of midfield players. Just shove him out in the left wing because he'll be alright, you know. No, I mean, it's funny, you know, like, when I look back and I think, it would have been a great influence, you know, in Don. No, you know, Elsie had a great knowledge of the game, you know. Sheesh, You spoke to her about the game. You were thinking you were speaking to somebody that was a manager of a football club. Because all her brothers played and they were managers. But, you know, Don was very much his own man and they were a great partnership. I mean, she was a hard woman, Elsie. She was hard because well, all her brothers played, you know, and she knew you had to be tough to play the game. And like, I can imagine if somebody had a bad game, or Elsie would say, just forget that, you've got to work hard at the game. You know, it's true that I think they had that type of relationship where Don was footballer of the year, Don was a great player and a great manager. But if anything went wrong, I think Elsie would have had a word to say.
Sounds like she was a formidable character. Nige, back with you. We've not talked to Eddie yet about Scotland, but England, 23 caps. Obviously, there was another fella around who'd been at Leeds United before you, who was doing the job in goals. But yeah, was that a frustrating time for you, or did you just keep going out on the field thinking, well, I've just got to do what I do, and it's somebody else's decision? How do you cope with that?
Yeah, it was hard to keep just going down and going down and going down each time that you'd go down. But the thing was, he never let us down really until his last game. That was the only time he really made a big mistake. And by that time it was too late for me. So, you know, that was the problem I had. He was so consistent when he played for England that it didn't matter, you know, if my form at Leeds had been better than it is his at Arsenal. You know, the England managers were still, you know, very confident of him. You know, and they would speak to me and say, like, you know, we'd love to play you if we could, but, you know, he's the number one, he's got the jersey, and until he does something wrong or gets injured, there's nothing much you can do.
And on managers, I mean, we know, you'll probably tell us that Terry Venables was your favourite, but who was the best you played for and why?
I was lucky with my managers. My first manager in the Football League was Jerry Francis, so England captain, really knowledgeable football guy, and spoke a lot of sense and set me off in a very good direction. Steve Coppell at Crystal Palace was a very good manager as well, a young manager, and did great things with Palace for a long time. And then coming to Leeds, obviously Howard I didn't see long enough to really make an opinion, but George I think was great, and David did really well taking over. Terry, not so much. Yeah, you probably know the story, but I played every game of the previous season, not missed a training session, been fit all season, lucky enough. Went to the World Cup in 2002, did a mini pre-season in Dubai before you go to a World Cup, so it's like you get to the end of the season and then you have about a 3-week really hard period of training in Dubai. It was really hot, so it was hard work. Go to the World Cup, and when we eventually get knocked out against Brazil, when Ronaldinho sticks it over Dave's head, we were then, I had 12 days off. The Arsenal boys were told by Arsene Wenger, 28 days from the day you'll get knocked out, that's how long you get off. 12 days, obviously we had a new manager, so he wanted me to report in. And I can remember my first day coming in, and Eddie was in charge, because he hadn't arrived yet, Terry, and Eddie said, "Oh, do you know about the trip?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, there's a pre-season trip to China, Australia and Thailand." So I was like, God, I've just come from there. I could do with a little bit more time off, if I'm perfectly honest. So Eddie said, "Well, I think the manager wants you to go." So the next day we were training, and I was training with the goalkeepers, and me, Robbo, Danny Milosevic, I think, was the third goalkeeper with Steve Sutton, and we're probably an hour into the session, and Eddie comes jogging over and goes, "The manager's going to be ringing you in 10 minutes in his office, so you better get yourself in." So I remember running in, covered in mud, kicked my boots off outside, took a top layer of muddy sort of gear off, walked in, his secretary is sat there, so I sort of said, "Oh, hi, I think Terry's going to be ringing me in a second." "Yes, he is, go on in." So I go in, sit down for about a minute, phone rings, pick it up, Nigel, it's Terry, what's this, you're not coming on the trip? I said, Terry, I've just come from the World Cup, I've had 12 days off, it's not enough. If you want me at the best I can be for you for next season, you need to give me a little bit more time off. I need time with my family, I need time to recover, you know. I think Eddie will let you know I was never really a troublemaker at any clubs I've been at. I just worked hard when I went in there and got on with my job. So he said, no, I can't have it. If you're not coming on this trip, you'll never play for the club again. So I went, well, Terry, the way I'm feeling at the moment, having just come back from there, I don't care. That was that was how I was feeling. You know, I needed more time. So he just put the phone down. So I walked out, and I think it was Karen was the name of the secretary. And I said to Karen, I said, he's been the manager for a week or so now, but you know, where is he? You know, he hasn't been at the club. You know, and she went, oh, he's just away filming. Wish you were here. So, which was a bit of a strange one. Yeah. So I remember running back out, putting my dirty kit back on, continued with the training session, went up to Robbo and went, Robbo, you'll be playing this season. And he was going, no, he'll be fine. I went, no, honestly, you'll be playing. Terry came in. I was then sent to go and train with the kids. And the first team went off and did the pre-season tour. And it was, I think, the Thursday before the first game of the season. On the Saturday was the next time Terry spoke to me. And he spoke to me to say, by the way, you're going to be on the bench on Saturday. So not only did he sort of really annoy me, Danny Milosevic, who was the third goalkeeper who'd been promoted to the second goalkeeper, was also really disappointed because he thought he was going to be on the bench. So he had two goalkeepers that were not really happy with him. Obviously, Robbo was the one that had benefited the most, and you know, he did really well.
Let's talk great players of your own era. Who would you pick out as, you know, in your half dozen years of on-field play with the club in the top three?
Right.
Got him gold here.
Yeah, well, Mark Viduka, I think, was an incredible striker. He could hold the ball up. He was so strong, back to goal, probably as good as players you're going to see. It was so simple for me. All I had to do was roll the ball out and aim for a big balloon head that was just over the halfway line, and literally just aim for him, and all I was aiming for was literally his head, and I could clip it right onto his head, and all he'd do is back into the centre half, because he was always stronger than them, take it down on his chest, and we'd start playing in the final third of their pitch every single time. It was so simple, but it was so difficult to stop. So Mark's got to be up there. A young Harry Kewell, when he was really flying, before he hurt his ankle, he was the spark. You know, if you've got somebody like David Batty, every time he got the ball, all he was going to do was just pass to Harry Kewell. And Bats was very simple, because he just said, you just give the ball to your best players, the ones that are going to create a threat, and that was what Harry was for us. He was our spark. He would beat a player, get you guys out of your seats, you know, put crosses in, get shots. So he was a really good player. Bats himself was a very good footballer. You know, we all loved him for his tackles and the way he'd not shoot when you tell him to. But he was a funny guy. I can tell a very quick story of playing at home in front of the Kop. Bats has got the ball, he's dribbling with it in our 6-yard box. He then passes it to me under pressure from two players. I managed to scoop the ball between these players. I don't know how I did it to this day, and it went out for a throw-in. And I've gone, Bats, what the flipping heck are you doing there, sort of thing. And he just looked at me and went, pass completion. So for Bats, it was all about keeping the ball and making sure his stats looked really good, to the detriment of me, who ended up having to scoop a ball between two players and just managed to, you know, not kick it against somebody and concede a goal. So yeah, I'll put Bats up there. He was good.
Eddie,
I think Nigel's right there. You know, that was one stat that Bart really cared about. He didn't care about putting you in trouble, putting Nigel in trouble. As long as that ball landed at your feet, it was your fault, whatever you done with it, you know. It's never Batch's fault, you know. That's the nature of the game.
So if Nige was the only player not from your era to make it into the greatest 11 of all time, then there are 10 or probably a dozen in your case to choose from. Who would be your top 3 that you played with?
The team I played
At the
with?
club.
Well, all great teams start at the back. Big Jack was a great player. Jack Charlton, great centre half. Norman Hunter was one of the best players that I've ever played the game. He was a tremendous player, Norman Hunter. Great player. Obviously, Billy, you know, and Giles. Giles is probably the best player I've ever played with. Yeah. And I mean, I know a lot of Leeds United fans don't like that because he came from Man United. But Giles was a genius. He was a genius, great knowledge of how to play the game, great footballer himself, but he get everybody else playing. And Johnny wasn't a selfish player. Johnny played for Leeds United and he played for the team. You know, he didn't care about the glory and that. He just played for Leeds United Football Club. So, to me, he's the best player I played with because his knowledge of the game, his technical ability, his awareness, and he had a great work ethic as well. I mean, Billy was obviously a great player, but Billy was a bit different to John. You know, John wouldn't look at personal stats and things like that. John would just go out and play for the side. And you get a lot of players that are different, you know. Billy was one of the great players, but Billy at times, you know, see that sign at Elland Road? You see about Billy? You know, signs before self every time. Whoa. You know what I mean? You switch it. Because that was Billy. Billy was a funny character. I mean, I loved him. I really liked him, you know. Maybe because he liked me. Was, you know, like, my best mate was Lorimer. Peter was a great guy, a great player, one of the greatest players I ever played for the club. He just couldn't see eye to eye with Billy. No, if we were having a drink and Billy walked in, Peter would walk out. You know, well, it's strange. Because, I mean, like, when they unveiled the statue to Billy, where they came from in Rannoch last year, up in Stirlingshire, one player went, me. That tells you everything, doesn't it? It is, you know. It's a strange thing, you know, like, I don't know why, but I got on really well with him. But it was, I think Billy was, like, he had a bad upbringing, Billy, you know. You know, like, I don't think he really knew his parents and all that, you know, and they could be a bit off the cuff, off the handle, you know. But one of the greatest players I've ever played for Leeds United.
Definitely. An exclusive tonight, ladies and gents, on Billy Bremner.
No,
So your top 3, come on, let's narrow it down to your top 3. I mean, you mentioned, just indulge me for a moment, I've said this to you before, but my favourite when I was in it was Peter Lorimer.
Peter's one of the
I know that there was so much talk about him as a
Do
young player.
you know what the hell? It's funny. I didn't know Peter. I didn't know him for Adam. I was 14 at the time, playing with Glasgow schoolboys, and I went to watch the Scottish schoolboys. This Peter was a year older than me. He played for the schoolboys the year before I did. And I went to watch the Scotland-England game, Ibrox, never forget it. And this boy was playing. And I couldn't believe how good he was, and it was Peter. So I'm arrogant, I think I'm from Glasgow, all the best schoolboy players come from Glasgow and Edinburgh. So I think he must come from Edinburgh, because I knew he never came from Glasgow. So I looked at the programme, P.P. Lorimer, his name was Peter Patrick, because his mum was a Catholic. Peter Patrick Lorimer, yeah. And I thought, in Broughty Ferry, that's where he came from, a place called Broughty Ferry. just outside Dundee. And I couldn't believe, when I first seen him playing for the schoolboys, I couldn't believe how good he was. Nobody will ever beat his goal scoring record for Leeds. Who's going to beat that? Nobody. 270 odd goals. You don't get that. You don't get people staying in clubs that long now. But he was, when I first seen him playing with the schoolboys, I just thought, wow. And I actually thought about it that night when I went to Ibrox and was playing against the English schoolboys. I thought, if I want to be a top player, I've got to up my game to get as good as this guy. Because he was tremendous. He was just tremendous. A great lad, Peter, as well. A really good lad, very generous guy. Looked after a lot of people in Leeds that were struggling at the time.
We've still got to narrow him down to 3 players here, haven't we?
Right, mate.
The bar does shut Eddie about half 11, I think, something like that. So you've got 3 men, 3 players. Who are they going to be?
My 3 players from Leeds United.
Your best 3. So
best
Giles,
3.
say number 1.
Giles would be number 1.
2 and 3.
I've got to put Billy up there. Yeah, only because Billy was unbelievable player, you know, like, and I've got to. If he pressed me on the 3, the 3rd one would be Hunter. He was an unbelievable player, Norman Hunter, and I've never played with a player that had the desire, the enthusiasm, and what he also had, he'd also a great gift, I think, in how fortunate he was to be playing football, and it never left him. Never left him. Week in, week out, different class to Bobby Moore. But when it came to international football, I've got to say, Bobby Moore was the man. And I'm never disagree with anybody that says that, because when Bobby Moore walked out leading England out, he was the governor. Week in, week out, like defender in English football, Hunter was the best player. But that's my opinion.
That's a big shout. Nigel? Just wanted to gauge your opinions on what's going on between the posts at Elland Road in recent times.
Clean sheet last game.
Come on, talk us through. What do you see?
Yeah, I think I think Lucas Perry is going to be one of those goalkeepers that will make unbelievable saves every now and again, but he's going to make mistakes as well. And I just think it's not. I don't think it's the manager signing. I think what's happened there is, like with Stack and Biol and players like that, they tracked them for a long time. They knew that they wanted him, and they really did their homework and due diligence on it. Whereas I think Perry was a last minute thing. They knew they needed a keeper, and suddenly he was available, and it was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. If from what I can tell, just because you can throw the ball 50 yards doesn't make you a great goalkeeper. It's gonna, that is a great thing to have. It's going to be a good thing maybe once or twice a season. What you need to be is solid in goal, do the simple things well, and come up with big saves at the right time. The Newcastle thing was a prime time. That was when he needed to come up with his save.
Very disappointing.
And he didn't come up with it, and you could see and tell by the manager's quotes after the game that he felt the same way. So I don't think he's probably the answer. I think Carl's a very solid goalkeeper. I feel more secure with Carl there.
Definitely.
And I think every time I've seen him play, he seems to have done well, and then he keeps getting dropped out of the team. I don't know what it is that managers don't like about him, but for me, he's more dependable. And I think your goalkeeper has to be dependable, and then bring out those big saves as well. but the job is do the easy things well. And if you do that and everything's consistent, everyone's relaxed with you, you're comfortable with your centre halves, they know what you're doing, you know what they're doing. He sweeps up behind very well. He's a good goalkeeper. I think they were looking for others, but the ones that aren't playing, Ramsdale at Newcastle's not playing, but his wages will be a big issue. It's something that you're going to have to do something about at some point, but it's going to be difficult how you manage that Perry situation, because they paid quite a bit of money for him.
Is he quite far down the list?
I've no idea. I don't know what it was. He just became available and they needed a keeper, and I think it was just those two things happened at the same time, and they then made that decision to go for him. I don't think they did as much background work on him as they had on the other signings.
So if you could take a player from another club and put him in goal for Leeds, who would that be?
How are they?
Yeah, I wish we could. Another goalkeeper.
So you don't just have a strong opinion on who's the one you'd want?
No, I mean, if it's anybody, you're going to be looking at the top clubs and thinking who they're. Alisson, you would have said was the best goalkeeper probably up until about a year ago, but I think even he is now just starting to show signs of not being quite at the level he was. So one of the younger ones, Raya or somebody like that.
Kelleher.
The funny thing about goalkeepers is, I played under a lot of great goalkeepers. The best natural goalkeeper I've ever seen, and it might shock you, it was Gary Sprague. Sprague was a great natural goalkeeper, but he made mistakes. Now you get goalkeepers, and Nigel, you wouldn't expect Nigel to make a mistake. And it was exactly the same with one of the other goalkeepers, Dave Harvey. Dave was like Nigel, solid, no spectacular, and never made many mistakes. Whereas Gary Sprague was probably gifted at coming for crosses and could make fantastic saves. Then he would throw the ball into the back of the net at times, No, but that's true. And that's why defenders, all the great defenders have ever played the game, they'd rather play with a dependable goalkeeper behind them than somebody who was going to throw himself a bit all the time and be spectacular. It's right, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, Eddie, if just have a bit of quiet, please, ladies and gents, for those who respect those who've also paid for a ticket. Thank you. While the gents are talking, thanks very much. Look, we've talked about this before, and of course, for all the successes of your golden era, there were some disappointments as well. If you could change the result of one of those finals where it didn't quite come out the right way, which one would you go back and change?
Well, I think it would have to be European Cup final. 74. I think it would have to be European Cup final, because when you play the game, that's the pinnacle of European football, and we were the better team that night. I never played that night. Jimmy never played me, but looking back at it as a football club, I think that was the most disappointing game that we never won, because we were the better team that night against Bayern, but we never won the game. And that's, Nigel will tell you, there's so many times in football, you get into a dressing room and think, we were the better team today. Did we win? No. And that's what counts. That's what counts in football. You've got to be winners, if I say to you, how many people in here would remember a game that Leeds United played great but lost? Hardly any.
Newcastle.
What?
Newcastle.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know. That's a bit of opinions, But over the years, normally, when you play football, the most important thing is winning the game and picking the points up. When Nigel have played many games and think, we played well today, but we get beat. You don't remember that game, do you? You remember the games you won, even games that you haven't played particularly well, and you've had to dig in as a team and work hard to get a result. And that's the most important thing, and I think that's what Don Revie's team done, Howard Wilkinson's team's done it, you know, David O'Leary's team's done it, you know, like over the years, you know. So, you know, the most important thing in the game is winning. That is. You agree with that?
That's the point of playing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that was the performance on Saturday, wasn't it? I don't think we were at our best on Saturday.
No.
But kept that clean sheet. I don't think they played well first half. I thought we played better second half. But I don't remember Carl having an actual save to make. You know, he had a lot of sweeping up to do and crosses and things. Didn't have a save to make, and that's, you know, the discipline that you need. And then you get the reward in the 90th minute, you know, and that's the way to get yourself out of trouble, or that's the way to win titles when you're not playing well, still get the result.
How's your confidence in terms of still playing Premier League football next season?
I think I could. Oh, sorry. I think we're probably 80% there now, because of the performances. You know, we're actually playing well. We're competing at this level. We look more comfortable at this level now than we did earlier in the season, and that may have came from shuffling it at Man City away when you're really getting battered and you think, right, okay, what am I going to do? And you stick two up front and you actually change the formation. And I think he's come across something in desperation, because he would have seen that the next games were Liverpool and Chelsea and Palace, who were doing really well at the time, and thinking, you know, I might be losing my job. So he's changed it around. He then played two up front against Chelsea, and we beat them 4-1.
3-1.
3-1, sorry, yeah, 4-1 against Palace. And then he hasn't played two up front since. You know, Nemecha obviously got injured. I'd like to see him play them, start them two up front together, because I think if it causes Chelsea a lot of problems, it's going to cause others more problems. I think Aronson and Okafor trying to work around him there. You need one of them going beyond Calvert-Lewin. You know, when he's going up for the ball, and you know he'll win his fair share. You need players beyond, because if he wins it and there's nobody beyond, you just lose possession. So the idea is to try and retain possession into the final third. You're going to create chances. So I'd like Nemecha up alongside him, and then everyone get around to win the second ball and just play from there.
Eddie, yeah, are you confident, looking a lot sharper in the last couple of months, 6 weeks?
Yeah, I'm quite confident the team will survive. I mean, then if you survive, you get a chance to build again. You know, look at new players, new investment come into the football club, or investment come into the football club. But to play at the highest level, you know, like, and especially, you know, in the Premier League, you've got to have top class players. You've got to have a couple of players that can do something that changes a game. You might not be playing well, you know, but if somebody's got that talent, like a Viduka, to change a game, you know, like just quickly. What?
Yeboah.
Oh, Yeboah was top player, yeah. But I mean, yeah, Tony was different though. He was like, he scored spectacular goals. You know, he was a top player. But I mean, I don't think. Well, people have got different opinions. But I think Viduka was a better player.
Oh yeah, skill-wise.
Viduka was a top player. On his day, Viduka could have played in any team in the world. Would you agree with that? Any team in the world.
It's a Celtic, it's a Scottish connection again, isn't it?
No, it's not a Scottish connection. So he could have played in any team. He could have played in any team in the world. I mean, so could Harry Kewell.
Yeah.
Kewell was a great talent.
Hasselbank.
What?
Hasselbank.
Oh, Jimmy was a top player as well. He was a top player, yeah. We've had a lot of top players. I mean, people going about Hasselbank and Viduka and that. The greatest goal scorer this club's ever had is my mate, Lorimer. Who's going to score 270 goals for the team? Peter did that.
Get your boots back on.
No, me.
Scotland again. So, I mean, you told me before that
Cheers,
For all the games and all the players you played in and against, the hardest games were on the Fulton Park training pitch.
11.5, yeah. Oh, they were hard games. Don't hit to stop the games. We used to play Scotland against England. Training game. And don't actually hit to stop the game because you get too nasty. Oh, it was getting nasty, you know. And it was funny because one of the greatest players, well, probably the greatest player I played with was Giles. Giles was a great player. But Giles was Irish.
Hooray!
So, before we played the games, they used to toss a coin up. Heads or tails. If Johnny was going to play for Scotland, he was going to play for England. We wanted him to play for us because Scotland, you know. Giles he's the best player I played with. Giles is the best player I played with. I would say, when I get asked to pick my top 10 British players of all time, and it might surprise a few people, there was 2 Leeds United players in it. Giles and Hunter. Norman Hunter was one of the great players. People don't realise how good a player Norman Hunter was. You know, he's by your legs, Hunter.
So
Great defender.
The other 9 must have been Nige.
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah.
No, I've got to say, he's right up there with this guy. But the one I picked,
Scotland team.
they won the World Cup. Gordon. He was a similar goalkeeper to you. Similar style. No flash. Did his job. Made great saves. But did again stupid. Would you agree with that? Yeah, he was top player. Top goalkeeper.
This sounds like the manager talking to his player again.
No, he was a top goalkeeper, Gordon Blanks. I mean, like people talk about England winning the World Cup. He plays in goal, and one of the best international players that I've ever played for England is Bobby Moore. International player. Hunter was a better league player, but Bobby Moore was a better international player. And Norman even acknowledged that.
We'll come back to the '66 World Cup final, I'm sure, after the break, but it is time for a break now. So, food will be served in the kitchen behind, but first of all, for this first hour, and you will get your own opportunity to ask a question in the second hour, but thank you to both Mike and Eddie.